is Emilio from Tower of Power. What's going on, everybody? This is Marcus Scott, the lead vocalist from Tower of Power. This is Brigade-Radio-One, baby. What is hip? He's holding him back, but you ain't just exactly super.
You're listening to Brigade-Radio-One.
Hey, Miguel was telling me that Muddy Waters' original hut he grew up in is in his museum.
Really?
Did you guys know that? Are you guys fans of Muddy Waters at all? Like, where he thought he was going to get arrested when the music guys showed up to record him?
Really?
He thought, this is it, I'm going to prison, because he was running moonshine. And
Holy
they go to his house, I guess, and he thinks this is it, and they're like, they record him, and they're like, we're going to pay you to do this, and he's like, what? You pay me to do this? And then, of course, Muddy Waters became Muddy Waters and Cadillac Records and all that. But his house, I guess, has been
really
entirely reestablished within the museum, the Blues Museum.
Where's the museum?
It's in Chicago, right? Yeah, it's in Chicago. Are you a Muddy Waters fan at all?
Who isn't? I mean, it's like, do you like Jesus?
Do you like Jesus, George? I mean, maybe we should ask that.
Jesus? Why do you hate Jesus?
Is Jesus your favorite Christian?
Jesus is a Christian? Oh my God, I didn't know that.
I was actually asked that one day on the radio if Jesus was my favorite Christian by Smashing Pumpkins. That's a story for another day. Forget it. I'm actually really impressed with what you're doing and what tonight's cause. Sponsors, I don't know how much you want to
Speaking of Jesus.
Speaking of Jesus. Christmas Day, you're
going out. What would Jesus do?
You are Jesus too, right?
No, I said what would Jesus do?
Well, he would do what you're doing, basically, right? Which is go into the...
No, he wouldn't play guitar.
You don't think so? No. I have a feeling he probably would.
He'd walk on water instead.
But you got to, well, he would do that too. But you got to remember that Jesus' big trick, right? Not big trick. That's probably the wrong way to put it. Was turning water into wine. So I could see him playing guitar.
That would put these guys out of business, though. The club.
It would, right?
Yeah, he'd order a fish sandwich and a beer, and
a fish sandwich,
and feed everybody in the mall.
Exactly. Can I get a fish? Can we let these people eat? But I am impressed with what you do Christmas Day and all year round, right? With your,
I got to say, it's well, for people that don't know, it's we put our own funds into it, but we also try to get people to donate as well, and then we buy tents and sleeping bags, warm clothes, hygiene kits, diapers, everything people need when they're living on the street, and it's cold.
Yeah.
So, and then we go out there and we give the stuff away, but really it's a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. It's kind of almost laughable in a way. I think it makes us feel better than it makes them feel, and I think that it's just really a reaction of guilt. And what would really be the only cure to change the system, the underlying system that is unfair, and that's the problem. And those are wonky policy things that we really, all we can do is vote. We'll vote at the voting booth and vote with our dollars.
Right.
And that's what we do. So we try to do the right thing, but in the meantime we realize we're not really changing anything fundamentally until you change an unfair system that doesn't have a social safety net, where people can have obscene amounts of wealth that, to me, if Jesus was on earth right now, he would say is the number one sin, is inequality.
I agree.
Because inequality pretty much drives everything else. It drives environmental destruction, drives warfare, because what is warfare? That's just there to benefit, the moneyed elite, the people that, that's all it's there for. I mean, the military is the last line of getting what they want, but, if you don't do a deal with the powers that be, and here we come, and we're going to get your resources and your cheap labor, and we're going to find places to dump all our pollution, and that's the end of that. And that's just how the world works. So, in a very micro level, we're trying to do some good here, and people are okay with that. A lot of people, when you start bringing up the larger subject, like I just did, they get very uncomfortable with that, because then you start threatening the fabric of, an economic system that benefits the very few over the very many.
So is it going to become like Soylent Green, where we're going to run out of plankton in the ocean, and we're going to start shoveling bodies into a factory that are going to come out as crackers? And I mean, are we just maybe a decade or two away from, say, that kind of destruction and trouble, do you think?
Well, we're in a scary time right now, because, when you're talking about threatening the balance of an ecosystem and you slightly disturb it and you could end life on Earth, that's something you'd probably want to default to. Maybe if 1% of the scientists who are, by the way, in the pockets of the energy companies don't agree with that, I wouldn't call it a 50-50 proposition. I'd say maybe it'd probably be a good thing to go ahead and prepare for that, and put humanity above profit, people before profit.
So that's the book, George, right? Humanity, your philosophy.
I would be interested in writing a book like that. Yeah, but there's people more well equipped to write than I am, and more knowledgeable than I am about those things. And nobody wants to listen to a guitar player talk about stuff like that. And some people call it politics. It's not politics. I mean, politics is an element of it, but it's really just humanity. It's our existence on the earth and how we treat each other and how we treat the earth, and it's important. It's very important. It's probably the most important thing. Right. And we should all talk about it, no matter what we do. If you're a plumber or a guitar player or a politician, a billionaire or a homeless person, we all matter, so.
Well, it is one small step for man, but maybe a bigger step for mankind. Tonight, your gig, your effort at Christmas and around the year to try to, it is as you say, a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound, but it is a Band-Aid, and who knows who you inspire and where that could possibly go. I mean, some of these young people you may be helping on the street may be encouraged to stick it out, go to school, and maybe the scientific solution down the road. That's the thing I wonder about, like, who are we helping? When we do our Christmas thing every year for the homeless kids, I'm waiting for the one to come back to us and be like, hey, man, I went on to be a lawyer to challenge the system, and I'm the guy who stood up for civil rights because I was ready to throw it all in. And I think you're probably looking at that, too, going, the kid who gets the sleeping bag may be able to make it another month, another week, what have you. Hang on, get the break. So you may be a bigger hero than you realize.
I met one of my heroes once.
Yeah?
Noam Chomsky.
Oh, really? Where?
At MIT. Interviewed him for a film I was working on called Shadow Nation, a movie about Native Americans and music. Mm-hmm. And it was my job to interview him. So I sat in a room with him for an hour and a half and got to witness how a real brain is supposed to work.
Right.
Is a professor of philosophy and linguistics
what do you
at MIT.
take away from that? Like, what moment of that interview sticks with you the most?
How fucking stupid I am.
Really?
Oh, shit, we're not supposed to cuss.
No, it's already good.
Okay.
Yeah. Really?
I'm retarded compared to... Dude, Noam Chomsky, give me a break. Dude, I mean, yeah, it was... I've never felt like that. I've met a lot of rock stars and celebrities. Never felt intimidated like that, and just sort of like overwhelmed with awe. What a wonderful person he was, and what powerful ideas he has, and how he has, and he uses every bit of that for good, and for no reward. And I think that's how you can really tell when people are doing the right thing, is just how they're getting rewarded for it a lot of times. If you're a pundit and you're working for some, sullied interest, maybe you're not really being honest with us. And if there's a person sacrificing to get some sort of a message out, you got to think about that. If this person's willing to put their life on the line and suffer for it to speak truth to power, maybe they're worth listening to. And that's what Noam is.
Where can we see that interview?
It's a film called Shadow Nation, and it's actually coming out. It's going to have its first television premiere coming up here. I wish I knew the date and the channel. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, that's all right.
I have to look it up. But it's called Shadow Nation. It is available on DVD.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
And you do the interview, huh?
Well, it's my film. We filmed Ted Nugent. We spent time with him. Discussed the opposite end of the political spectrum.
Yeah. How was Ted?
Difficult.
Was it? In terms of just logistics or personality, or getting through the conversation?
Yeah, getting through the conversation. Yeah. Trying to stick to the point.
Well,
we're not talking about how you hate Obama, dude. We're talking about this is a different movie.
Okay. I mean, it's like he doesn't seem to want to hear anything.
Dude, it was painful.
Yeah. It was painful.
But we had Tom Morello, who is a student of Noam's and a genius in his own right, master's degree in political science. His grandfather was the first democratically elected leader of an African nation,
Really?
Yeah. His family is very intellectual and always been into labor. Union, pro-union and stuff like that. And he's just got a mind like a steel trap, And he's very eloquent in the film. Who else do we have in it? We have one of the American, John Trudell. Founder of the American Indian Movement.
Yeah.
One of the, not the founder, but one of the first original American Indian Movement leaders.
He lost his kids on the res.
Right. Yeah. To the government.
Yeah.
He was being chased. He was up in Canada, and they burned his house down, killed his wife and one unborn baby. And
I think they touch on that incident at Oglala.
Incident Oglala is, that's my Bible, dude.
Is it?
John and I wrote a song on the soundtrack to this film, which you can buy. And he died of cancer a couple of years ago, but we wrote a song called Trail of Tears, and you gotta hear, if nothing else, you just gotta hear his voice and the weight of his voice, paired with the words, the power of his words is the heaviest poetry I've ever heard in my life. I can't listen to it and not cry. It's so crazy. Yeah, so
Shadow Nation.
Shadow Train is the name of the band.
Okay.
Yeah, we toured all the western reservations and just set up on Gen Power and camped out, and we toured for a whole year, just and dealing and filming and stuff, and that's what the film is. Yeah.
You should all, on a side note, you should all see Incident at Oglala if you haven't seen it.
Please.
I've watched it probably 4 times in a row when I saw it, just to kind of put the whole thing through my mind. Redford did it, and Michael Apted directed it, but you have to watch it and kind of study it just to believe the puzzle that's put in place before you. It's all about Peltier, and then just the whole, walk away with the way justice is bent to carry out a certain sort of agenda, period.
Hello.
Yeah. But,
you go up to South Dakota, North Dakota now, you still see all that racism. Heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. We were just up there. We were up there for the pipeline.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we were there working and supporting that cause, and Standing Rock.
We bought a field kitchen for it.
Yeah, I was putting together stoves.
Yeah.
To 55-gallon drums, I was building stoves. She worked in the medical yurts. Yeah. And, man, I'll tell you, it was probably one of the scariest moments in my life is going up against those private police and mercenaries and cops and militarized cops. It's fucking insane. Wow. They were jamming all the phones with their drones and their airplanes. 24 planes, all daylight hours, planes were just circling. But, concertina wire, barbed wire. I don't know what kind of fucking vehicles these things were, but these were massive. Tires this big, bulletproof, with these things that should be in Iraq. I don't know what the hell they were doing. And, we're not supposed. Our military is not supposed to be going against their citizens.
Right. And
that's constitutional.
Dakotas,
This is, these guys, gas mask, black, swatted, AR-15s, fully auto, concussion bombs, sonic weaponry. So we had to have earplugs. We had. For body armor, what we did was we put paperback books. We had thousands of paperback books that were donated with duct tape. And that's how we body armored ourselves. And we had to have eye protection because of the rubber bullets, and we had to have earplugs for the sonic weaponry. It was unbelievable. It was just, this is America? Yeah. And all we were doing was fighting, for people over profit. The pipeline was supposed to go through Bismarck, but Bismarck is 90% white. And with a per capita above the national average. And I said, not in our backyard. NIMBYism. They go, put it through the Indian reservation, which they, of course, did, under their water supply. And the Native Americans said, no, sovereign nation, you can't pollute our water. They had passed all the environmental reporting that they were supposed to do. And, of course, Trump came in and he just green-lighted everything and went in and they had a spill. But it's more, to me, about respect. First Americans, indigenous people that were here before any of us, and, they now have 2% of the land base and 2% of the original population. And we built a $1 billion, trillion economy on that. And yet we owe them nothing?
Yeah.
And they're third-class citizens in their own country. It's crazy.
Did you ever meet Russell Means?
No. Wish.
Yeah.
I would have been.
Because I met Saginaw Grant recently for an interview, And that was like mind-numbing, hearing him talk about what he had seen and been through. I mean, what you're describing sounds like Vietnam. You know, the whole, we used books for body armor. It sounds like a Viet Cong kind of insurgents kind of movement. I mean, so how long were you up there taking rubber bullets?
A week. My wife and I, we were in a tent freaking in the snow. I mean, and I loved it, and it broke my heart that it all broke up, because the solidarity with everybody and the love, it was so powerful. I loved it. It was like, I want to live in a country like this, where everybody's making food for each other, take care of each other, watching out for each other. You know, a lot of difficulties, you know, living in a situation like that. You know, where do you get water? Where do you get medical help? Where do you get food? And had a lot of work to do. Every day you had to work. But it was working for a good thing, you know. And it reminded me of my youth, because I grew up, you know, as a sort of a hippie in that world in late 60s, early 70s, and that all dissolved as well in the same kind of way, in a much slower fashion. But, you know, and the feeling of just sort of disillusionment when that all happened up till this point in my life was very disheartening and crushing, you know, because we had so much hope and optimism about the future, and then when it all just turned back to money and war and people being shitty to one another, it's just kind of like, fuck that.
You better subscribe to this channel before you look uncool.